everyone, it's John from What Up, and welcome back to another video. And we have some Wheel of Time news for you this week. We're going to talk about an article from Screen Rant that makes mention of some things that the Wheel of Time may do better than the Game of Thrones. A Q&A by Rafe Judkins that he's doing per episode in conjunction with Dragonmount's rewatch. So they're rewatching the first 8 episodes of the Wheel of Time, and Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, is answering one fan question per episode. So we have those for you here. An official Wheel of Time Twitter account contest where you can win a signed copy of The Eye of the World, and as well as a copy of the soundtrack. Now, both those last things I mentioned were on Twitter, and I know not everybody really likes Twitter, especially right now, since Great Value Tony Stark kind of took it over. But we're going to talk just a bit about that too, and what it could mean for the future of the Wheel of Time fandom. And then we're going to get into a leak. So we have a leak, I guess it's a leak, kind of, sort of. The body double for Selene in the second season of the Wheel of Time posted some things on Instagram, basically letting us know that she's the body double for this character, and along with some images. So we're going to show those to you today. Spoiler warning, they were already in the teaser, and we now know who certain people are in that teaser, which is pretty neat. We're going to finish it off with some merchandise. I was sent by Simon & Schuster the unofficial Wheel of Time coloring book. We're going to showcase that. I'll show you a little bit about that. And it's really, really very neat. And we'll have some links where you can buy it as well down below. So, if you're new to the channel and you don't know what we do here, obviously at this point, we cover Wheel of Time show news and anything and everything related to the Wheel of Time. If you like that sort of thing, make sure you click the subscribe button and the notification bell. We put out a couple of videos per week, and they're all Wheel of Time centric. Now, all of that being said, we will be talking some stuff about Season 2. We will be showing some images, and we can't do that without spoiling some small things. So, spoiler warning, in today's episode, we're talking about elements of Season 1 and Season 2 of Sony and Amazon's Wheel of Time show. So if you have not seen the first season, that's episodes 1 through 8 by Sony and Amazon, then be forewarned, I'm going to ruin plot points and minor character arcs from the first season. And if you haven't read the first 3 books of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, that's The Eye of the World, The Great Hunt, and The Dragon Reborn, I'm going to be speculating some things with Season 2 things happening. So I may ruin character arcs and plot points from those 3 novels as well. All right, that being said, let's get on to the video. All right, so we're starting off with this article by Screen Rant. I left a link to it down below in the description box if you folks want to take a look at it. But essentially, it talks about some of the problems of Game of Thrones, where they would introduce important characters and then leave them alone for a very long time, and then come back to them much later. Now, I only watched the first, I want to say 4 seasons of Game of Thrones before I kind of dipped out. But I did notice that there were large sections of each season where they just kind of ignored a character, or maybe a character went away for quite some time and then came back, but they were still important and integral to the story. Now, the article talks about how they're not doing that with Moiraine Sedai, so Rosamund Pike is kind of staying around for Season 2. Now, Season 2 is largely based upon the events of The Great Hunt and some of The Dragon Reborn. At least that's what we think anyway. There's been made mention that elements of books 1, 2, and 3 will happen in the second season, and let's face it, Moraine's role in The Great Hunt is pretty small. She's not in it a whole lot. She takes a backseat to a bunch of other characters. Now, we've seen quite blatantly in the first season that Moiraine is the main character of the show, which kind of makes sense because Rosamund Pike is a household name. She's a very famous actress, and she's well known pretty much everywhere, and she draws a lot of star power to the show. So, of course, along with her being a producer, she would be front and center for the show. Now, that kind of hurts a little bit when you get to points in the series where Moiraine may not be front and center too much, which certainly would happen with Season 2. However, Rafe Judkins has mentioned a couple of times before that they've rewritten some things and reworked some things where she can have more of a storyline and be more involved in the second season. So this article talks about how that's a good thing and how that not leaving certain characters for large swaths of time will make the show a little bit better. Now, I have a slight argument to that, and that is if they're going to do this, if they're going to keep all of these main characters, because there are a ton of main characters, there's not just one realistically in the books, there's a bunch of them. If they're going to keep them all front and center and keep all of their stories intertwined, they're going to have to do one of 2 things. Either they're going to have to cut a ton, which I think we've already seen, and I think that's going to happen, or they're going to have to start giving us more episodes per season or longer episodes. Now, that second one is sort of a pipe dream. Amazon is pretty much married to the idea of 8 episodes per season and just under an hour per episode. That's just their formula, and they think that works, so they're going to stay with that regardless of how much is filmed or how much they could do. So I don't think we're going to see that. So I think we're going to see some massive cuts and some massive amalgamations in certain storylines to keep some characters that may not be as important later on in the books to the front and center, to keep them in people's mind's eye, so to speak. So that's my 2 cents anyway, but we'll have to wait to see what happens with Season 2. Now we're going to talk about this. There's an anniversary sweepstakes. So the first season came out just a little bit over a year, like a year and a day now when I'm filming this ago. And so the official Wheel of Time Twitter account put out this anniversary sweepstakes where you can find, or you can win rather, a signed copy of The Eye of the World and the soundtrack. And all you had to do was write hashtag #WattSweeps underneath the post. So I've left that down below in the description box. It may be, depending on when you're watching this video, too late to enter, but give it a shot anyway. It's down there. Now, I know we've talked about this a couple times on the channel. Twitter is not exactly everybody's favorite thing, especially right now. I did mention in the intro, the great value Tony Stark, aka Elon Musk, did take over the platform, and some crazy shit has been happening. Like, they've lost advertisers. People have been impersonating other accounts. When you could buy the blue check mark, you can't anymore for a bit there. And then they're thinking about going back to it, or maybe they have already. I don't know. It seems to change every day. There's a whole lot of confusion and chaos going on there. A lot of the staff has quit or been fired. So Twitter's future is certainly up in the air. I'm sure some of it is by design for publicity, and I think a lot of it is real. So that leaves the question, what's going to happen with Wheel of Time fandom? The main spot for the Wheel of Time fandom for the last 3 or 4 years now has been Twitter. It's called Twitter of Time. That's where the official Amazon account, the Wheel of Time, interacts with the fans. They give them, or us rather, little tidbits, castings, videos, pictures, clips. It all happens there. Eventually it'll show up on Facebook and Instagram. Sometimes it doesn't at all, but sometimes it does, and eventually you'll see it sometimes in articles by Variety or Deadline, but mostly the interaction has been on Twitter. Now, there's been some talk of what would happen if Twitter kind of went the way of the dodo and disappeared, but no one really knows what would happen, and that kind of leads us into this. Rafe Judkins is doing a Q&A with Dragonmount. Now, Dragonmount.com is the oldest surviving Wheel of Time fan site out there. I mean, they've been around forever, and they're doing a rewatch campaign. So right now they're rewatching the first season, episodes 1 through 8, and they're asking some questions to the fans, like, what would you want to know about these particular episodes? They're doing polls, and the winners of those polls are given to Rafe Judkins, the showrunner for the Wheel of Time show, and he's answering those questions. Now, this happened, and there was a bit of a lag between the questions being asked and the answers, and this is what Rafe Judkins came out with. Wasn't sure Twitter was still happening, but I will answer all of these this weekend. Sorry for the delay. If it makes you feel any better, I was back in Prague for start of prep in season 3, which is really very cool. We knew the writer's room was in London for the last little while, working on season 3, and now they're starting to prep it, so they must have at least the outline done, if not some of the scripts finished, so they can start prepping locations and stuff. And they are talking Prague, which is very neat. There are some thoughts on maybe they wouldn't be going back to Prague for season 3 because the Czech Republic has killed, they've completely shot down the incentive program for filming there. So that's been gone for the last couple of months. Season 2 of Wheel of Time did get it because they're grandfathered in, but there was a bunch of different things that were being filmed there that moved out of the country because they weren't going to have the same financial incentives they did last year. So either way, we're going to get into some of these questions. So this one is about episode 2, and the question was there anything cut from the episodes that we would miss, that they would like to have in the episode? And Rafe's answer was, there were so many cut from this episode that I miss, some at the script stage and some after we shot. Hopefully those will make it eventually to your screens. I'll talk about 2 I missed from the script. Now, he says 2, I think he does 3 here, but I want to talk about that. Hopefully they'll make it to the screens. There was some hope that we'd see some deleted scenes and stuff on the Blu-ray release of The Wheel of Time. Nothing, just a bare bones release. We haven't seen anything on Amazon Prime or Amazon Video. I'm kind of hoping later on, when the show is done, all 8 seasons are done, or 7 seasons, depending on how far they go, that they do release a full box set with a lot of these deleted scenes, or they release a director's cut. That would be absolutely amazing, because I know for a fact there are a ton of stuff they filmed that would make the show not only pace better, it would make it feel better, and it would explain a lot of things to fans that had questions for the first season. But I digress. Anyway, so things that were cut that he wanted to see in were, one was Land fighting and killing a Fade and seeing it take down the large group of Trollocs that were controlled by it. It was a great moment for Land and helped lay out the rules of our world. That would have been really very cool, because to this point I don't believe anyone really knows the metaphysics behind the Shadow Spawn in the show. It hasn't really been explained in world in the show. So the viewers, whether you've if you've not read the books or you're very casually acquainted with the books, you probably don't understand exactly what happens with Fades and Trollocs, what their relationships are, because it hasn't really been explained yet. Kind of hoping they get to this in season 2, but that would have been really neat to see in season 1. Another one was Moraine creating her wall of fire to hold back the Trolloc army chasing them. I remembered loving that in the books and missed that we couldn't have it. It was just outside Shadar Logoth when they were escaping from the Trollocs chasing them on the road. She creates this big wall of fire, and then she kind of collapsed from exhaustion afterwards, and they carry her into Shadar Logoth, and that's where they spend the night. That happened in the first book, The Eye of the World, and it would have been a really iconic scene to see in the first season. Unfortunately, they didn't include it. I kind of understand why. It probably would have been very expensive to film, but it also would have been really cool. In a bonus third, there's too many was Lan teaching the boys to defend themselves with sword, staff, and axe, each with its own emotional implications. There was a ton of people that were very upset this didn't happen in the first season, because how do we know how Rand gets trained with a sword? How do they know how to use their weapons? Now, to be fair, in the first season, we didn't see any of the boys really use their weapons much at all. Very, very, very little. So the fact that they weren't trained by Lan on screen really didn't mean a whole lot for the show standing alone. But going forward, it's where Lan really starts to make that bond with Rand, and it would have been really nice to see those scenes with them together, Lan taking on a fatherly role to these 3 young men and teaching them some things. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe we get to see some of that in the second season or beyond, but I really don't know if they're going to include that. All right, the next question was how they chose the tone and the theme of The Man Who Can't Forget. And Rafe's answer was we wanted Tom to have more of an old Western vibe to him in the show that brought a lot to the tone of the song. But Dave Hill actually wrote the lyrics for The Man Who Can't Forget about the dragon himself after he'd broken the world. Rewatch, you'll see how it hits Rand. I liked it. A lot of people didn't like Tom in the first season. I liked the way he was portrayed. I liked the changes to his character. I liked the Western-y type vibe to him, and I really, really enjoyed when he sang this song. I just hope we get to see more of him, because they did cut him a little bit short in the first season due to filming conflicts, so we only got a little bit of Tom. I'm hoping maybe he shows up a little bit more in season 2 and beyond. Now, the next one was about Easter eggs. Are there any Easter eggs that no one has really noticed? Now, I've taken this to heart, and I've started going through the episodes, trying to find them, and we'll see. I think some of these I've already mentioned in videos before, maybe people didn't catch, but his answer was we have so many Easter eggs everywhere. Everywhere from the trinkets on Peta and Vane's cart to the fact that every house in the Two Rivers we built had named inhabitants from the books matching their described jobs and hobbies. But one Sarah didn't think people noticed was Nynaeve's mention of Trust the River to Egwene in the Women's Circle ceremony. Not only points to the Manetheren history and how to embrace the source, you can hear water in Mo's teaching scene in episode 102, but also how Nynaeve will eventually break through her own block. Now, that's pretty cool. I didn't mention that one in any of my videos, and I don't believe I saw any other breakdowns talk about it. I did talk about, the Trust the River point to embracing the source, but I didn't talk about Nynaeve's block. So really very neat. For those of you who haven't read the books, Nynaeve has a block on the power, and I give spoiler warnings up to the 3rd book, so we can talk about this a bit. She can only channel when she's angry, which is why her iconic thing that she does all the time is tug her braid when she's angry. She can channel around you a bit, which is really very neat. All right, so now we're going to talk just a bit about that leak that I mentioned earlier in the video. This is Michaela. She is a life and art model, and she does body doubling. Now, if you remember way back, we're talking months and months and months ago during the filming of season 2, there was a call out for a body double, and the role needed to be nude and covered in blood. Now, we weren't 100% sure at the time, but there was a ton of speculation that this would have been for Lanfear or Selene. And Michaela recently updated her CV and her Instagram to reflect the fact that she was indeed the body double for Selene for season 2. Now, this is pretty interesting news in and of itself, because she is a life and an art model, and Instagram is full of different artful poses. However, we do know that from the call out that she was to be covered in blood for the particular scene she was doing for season 2, and she posted this to her Instagram, saying it was her honor to do a little bit of bloody acting in Wheel of Time Season 2. Now, this is the shot from the Season 2 teaser with a character covered in blood reaching out to grab who we think is Shamael's hand. Now, we're not 100% on this, but that's who we think it is. And we now know that since she's posted this, that she was the body double for this, and her CV says that she's a body double for Selene. So this is 100% Selene or Lanfear in Season 2 of The Wheel of Time. Now, we aren't 100% sure on which actress is playing the role just yet, but we do know that Michaela is the body double and has shot scenes for Season 2 now, because her CV and her Instagram both reflect that. So we're going to end on a high note here with some Wheel of Time merchandise. But before we get into that, I do want to mention that if you make Wheel of Time merchandise, whether official or unofficial, if you're a Wheel of Time content creator, you have a podcast, a YouTube channel, a Discord server, basically anything and everything at all, drop me a line. My email is in the About section of my channel information, and I'd love to hear from you. I want to showcase all of the Wheel of Time stuff that the fandom does here in the channel. Whether you sell things, create things, or just want to share your Wheel of Time love with the world, we want to see you here on the channel. And you've seen that in the last couple of videos. So my last video, I featured Woodrome Illustrations. He had a Redbubble store where he sold some shirts. He had an art station where he sold a bunch of prints of his artwork, some of them Wheel of Time related. It was really very neat. And today we have something else. Today, this is from Simon & Schuster, the unofficial, and I have to stress that, the unofficial Wheel of Time coloring book. So this book is unofficial and unauthorized. It is not licensed, approved, or endorsed by the authors of the Wheel of Time book series, their publishers, or Sony Pictures Television and Amazon Content Services. So this has nothing to do with the show or the books in any way, shape, or form, other than the fact that it's a really kick-ass Wheel of Time coloring book. So, on the back of it, it reads, with this coloring book, you can explore all shades of the lush world of the best-selling fantasy series, The Wheel of Time, now shown on Amazon Prime. Using your colored pencils, breathe life into Moraine and her perilous search for the Dragon Reborn. Inside, find 45 scenes you can bring to life, such as the Skulls in the Blight, Nynaeve's Traveling Apothecary, Shan-Chan on the Western Shore, and more. That's such a tongue twister. Shan-Chan on the Western Shore, and more. Sharpen your colored pencils and escape into the world of the Wheel of Time with the unofficial Wheel of Time coloring book. Now, this book was sent to me by Simon & Schuster to feature here in the channel, and I'm a sucker for coloring books. I love it. I have a bunch of adult coloring books, so does my wife. We enjoy coloring in our downtime. And if you open up just to a random page, here, we have the Tinker's Wagons. We have Egwene and Moraine learning how to channel. There's a whole bunch of different panels in here from the show itself. Now, I do want to stress it's unofficial, but it is cool as hell. Now, if you like coloring, if you like the Wheel of Time, I would definitely recommend you pick up this book. Again, the link is down below in the description box. It is really neat to have, and it's definitely going up on the shelf there with the rest of my Wheel of Time books and swag to have in the background of all my videos. And of course, I'm going to be coloring in it because that's what you do with a coloring book. So, I want to thank you all very, very much for sticking with me here to the very end. And here's to many more.